The 90-day review, President Biden told reporters today that he could possibly publicly release the report.
To release the report in full after 90 days?
Yes, that's unless there's something I'm unaware of.
So the president leaving himself an out there while talking to reporters at Joint Base Andrews before heading to Cleveland, Ohio. And the messaging on this since yesterday, when this was unexpectedly announced during the press briefing, has gotten a little better. It was very murky yesterday when Karine Jean-Pierre made the announcement during the briefing to reporters. Today, Jen Psaki, the press secretary, attempted to clean up that timeline while briefing reporters on Air Force One en route to Ohio. So this is how she gave the timeline. She said back in March that the president asked the intelligence community to conduct an assessment and give him a report. She says that it was presented to him a couple of weeks ago, and the president asked if they could declassify the information. She says then the intelligence community got back to them about a week ago, told them that was possible, and then the day before, a couple days ago, they put a statement together, a public statement that they proposed to the White House, and that this is the backdrop. But keep in mind, Jen Psaki, this whole time that she says this was going on, was saying that the White House supported another World Health Organization investigation, and it's basically downplayed any idea that the U.S. would conduct any investigation of its own. And as you said, that comes after news that they actually killed a Trump administration investigation that was ongoing at the State Department. Now, China is responding, and as you can imagine, they seem about as shocked as the press pool was yesterday. And clearly, this is not news that China wanted to hear, and they're already pushing back in the way that they most often do. They in a statement from the Chinese embassy here in the United States, said that this is a smear campaign and blame shifting are making a comeback, and the conspiracy theory of lab leak is resurfacing. And then they went on to say, out of a sense of responsibility towards the health of mankind, we support a comprehensive study of all early cases of COVID-19 found worldwide and a thorough investigation into some secretive bases and biological laboratories all over the world. So China, again, going back to a tactic they used a few months ago, suggesting that even the country of China is not necessarily the origin of the virus, suggesting that it could have begun in another country. Bob, Heather?
Yeah, specifically talking about a military base with the U.S. involved.
Right, the United States.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much, Emerald.
Makes it more suspicious,
Absolutely.
doesn't it? Makes me more convinced they did it.
Yeah, I was trying to make notes of everything that Emerald was going through, because at this point, the back and forth is so extensive that it's confusing to everyone. Let's bring in Eric Bolling, who is the host of Bowling with Favre podcast, to talk a little bit more about this. You know, Eric, she said the Biden administration killed an investigation by the State Department, then said they backed an investigation by the WHO, and then now announcing that they want to do a new investigation completely on the origins of COVID.
Oh, sure they did. And they haven't lied about this for the past year, have they? And they haven't accused anyone who said that this likely came from this lab, the leak came from the lab. They accused them and us of being racist. Tom Cotton, Senator Rand Paul, President Trump, Bolling, anyone else who's been talking about this for a year, well, even to suggest it was a lab leak was racist. No doubt they're now eating crow. New York Times has to put it on their front page that Biden is asking for an inquiry. Karine Jean-Pierre blatantly lied today when she said Joe Biden has been calling and has been talking about a lab leak for the better part of a year. That is not true. They've been hiding that. They've been pushing them back. For what reason? I don't know. Is there any ties to Hunter Biden in China? Maybe. I have no idea. But the reality is, for the past year, Fauci has made everything political. He made the mask political. He made vaccines political. They've made the origin of this political. Rand Paul pushed back on Fauci a week ago or so, ballpark. And he said, why are we funding gain-of-function experimentation in China when it's so dangerous? We shouldn't be doing that. And Fauci first said we weren't, and then admitted later on in that same question session that we are, in fact,
I think we have that, actually. And since you brought that up, let's go to this. Dr. Anthony Fauci testifying on Capitol Hill about the Wuhan lab and the gain-of-function research.
So they didn't consult with y'all?
They did not.
Did they consult with you, Dr. Collins?
I read about it in the press this morning.
Doc? They just spiked it without talking to their experts? You don't want to answer that one, do you?
I just read about it.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
We know that's not true because that gentleman right there, Dr. Francis Collins, was from UNC. He is in charge of the funding from the NIH. UNC Chapel Hill also doing the gain of function research with Dr. Ralph Barrick. Yeah. All of this approved by Dr. Fauci.
Approved, and also the funding approved.
Yes.
But we need to take a step back.
And the research involved the lab in Wuhan.
And why are we doing that in Wuhan? Why are we doing it at all? Why are we increasing the veracity and the virility of a virus that is killing hundreds of thousands of Americans and millions of people? What is the reason for that? Even if it was an accidental leak from the lab, it's a dangerous. What are you going to tell me to combat a stronger virus will be safer?
I don't know why I would say that. What I would say is, if it was an accident, why aren't they helping us investigate it?
Who, the Chinese?
Yes.
Oh, because
the Chinese.
They realize the world will come down on them. I mean,
as well they should.
Of course they should. It was a leak from this lab. It's clearly a leak from the lab. The question is, was it manufactured in the lab, or was it animal to human being? Was it intentionally manufactured? I mean, it's a very scary concept. You have to take a step back, and I don't want to be conspiracy theory here, but how is it that this virus leaked from this Wuhan lab? The world got infected, and China. If you remember this, a year ago we talked about this. We were struggling for PPE, personal protection equipment. We didn't have masks and garments for our first responders. China had it all. We had to go to them hat in hand and buy this stuff from them.
Funny that they had them.
Funny that they had it available to the rest of the world.
As they knew that they had problems. When was that? Back earlier in 2019.
Do you remember a doctor who said this may have come from a lab? Mysteriously died right after that?
Right.
Died.
Yes, several of them have said that, and several scientists have said that as well, but yet they were silenced by the mainstream media, also silenced because they do need the funding to continue their research. That's also another big issue, Bob. You and I talked about that a little bit.
You know, I'm hosting 7, but I'm doing a monologue tonight on one of the things is how inaccurate Dr. Fauci has been. He's been inaccurate about everything.
Changing
First,
positions
masks don't matter. Then we need a mask. Then we need 2 vaccines. This, that, the other. He's just been so off base on every single thing. This is one that is likely going to be. When we do find out what happened, I want to find out if there's a tie to Dr. Fauci. Well, why is it that he's been so wrong and changed his stance on so many things? Is it just he just wants to be in the media? He likes the publicity? Or is he, Bob, is he tied to some of these vaccines?
We know the answer is going to be no, he wasn't tied. And then we're going to find out, oh, maybe he was.
He's tied into the funding. He's tied into the funding.
No for now.
But honestly, he's tied into the funding that went to this lab in Wuhan, and that's a fact. And I think that was the big concern immediately to cover that up.
Is he tied in by giving the funding, or is he tied in by somehow getting something back in return?
Profiting from it? I'm not sure.
So therein lies the difference, right? So he can be a hero to all these Chinese labs and all these different groups by offering U.S. funding. That it stinks, but it's legal.
Right.
Now, but if there's a tie back to him, like something's coming back,
we don't know.
We don't.
We don't
I'm
know
not
any
claiming
of that.
there is. We don't know that. But if there is, that would be illegal.
But that would be the whole thing. Is let's find out more. Let's find out, where did the money go? What did they do with it? If we gave it to them, why shouldn't they be obligated to give us that information? They also somehow played a role in this infecting the whole world. They have an obligation to the world to come out morally, if nothing else, to come out and say, this is how it happened, we apologize, or was it intentional?
Yeah.
Either way, they learned from this, and it makes me concerned about what's coming down the road.
Even if it's not intentional, if they're highly negligent by allowing this thing to leak, then the world needs to step up and say, you got to fix this stuff before you can start playing around with gain-of-function viruses anymore.
The gain-of-function research pause was lifted, so they were allowed to continue doing that. Gain-of-function is when you take these viruses that would come from an animal and you make them more, what's the word, virulent? You make them stronger.
Right.
You adapt them so they can infect humans, which is exactly what happened.
Theoretically, you do this to make sure that you're prepared for that kind of thing happening.
Well,
Yes, I know.
That's the shiny object over here. We're doing this for you.
Right.
Meanwhile, there are a lot of people who think the Chinese military may have been involved in some of this gain of function because they wanted their hands on this virus.
They sure have watched what's happened, right? And saw how poorly we dealt with it.
And their
what's
scientists were here in the United States doing this research at our universities. Scientists from the Wuhan lab were here doing it in 2015.
It's literally out of a horror flick.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, I'm Rob Finnerty. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please join the conversation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, too. Hit the bell icon to be alerted to breaking news. And remember, there's a whole lot more on Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news network. Newsmax TV, where real news for real people.